Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have all of our speakers gathered tonight for the Ag Producer webinar, Selling Your Meat Directly to Consumers. I want to ask everyone if they would, while they're listening to the presenters, to put their microphone on mute if you can. There is an active Q&A chat that you can participate in either during the webinar or after. We'll answer questions that have come in through the Q&A chat. Please let us know if you have any concerns or anything that brings up something that you faced as a producer yourself, and we will do our best to address those concerns after each presentation and also at the end. Just a quick agenda for tonight. First, we're going to have Mike Pierce with the Kansas Department of Ag talk to us about processing requirements. Daisha Clark with the Small Business Development Center at Pittsburg State University will be talking to us about setting up your business. Mindy Lee will be talking to us about marketing your product, and she's also with the SBDC there in Pittsburgh. And then we have Sherry Shanker with us tonight, a producer who has done a lot with her business and selling directly to retail. And she'll be giving us a brief presentation as well. So I will move it on to you, Daisha. I'll stop sharing my screen, and we will be monitoring those questions as the presenters go on.
Is Mike up first?
Yep, Mike, you're up first.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this tonight. Let's just go over the first thing that I think most importantly is we have three different types of plants in the state of Kansas. We have federal inspected plants, we have state inspected plants, and then we have custom exempt plants. The federal inspected plants, the main difference between that and the state plants would be that you can ship across state lines if it's federally inspected product. State inspected product can only be sold inside the state of Kansas. And then custom exempt plants, that's where an owner takes an animal in and the owner takes that animal back for his own use. And the way the law states, that's for the owner, household members, former household members, non-paying guest employees. It's not to say that that product couldn't go to someone else. It can be sold prior to the slaughter of the animal, and it can be sold in quarters, halves, or wholes, but that sale does have to take place before the animal arrives at the plant. And those names would have to accompany that animal then during that processing. State inspected plants and federal inspected plants, if you use those facilities, and you will if you want to sell your product directly to consumers by the piece, make sure that those plants know that you have the intent to resell that product. Because it makes a difference in what they do and their paperwork and what plans they run. And so they'll be very familiar with that once you start discussing it with them. As far as labeling goes, you can use two different types. You can have your own label, but remember that if you do create your own label, that label has to stay at the facility that it was with, because the inspection legends are only good for each individual plant. So if you have a label made, it needs to be applied at that plant and only by that plant. And then the other thing you can do is you can just use the current labeling that they already use. And then we go into labeling a little bit more. There's basically 7 different items that need to be on the packages, and that is a product name such as a beef ribeye steak, an ingredient statement if that product is made of more than one ingredient. For example, a cured bacon would have an ingredient statement that shows all the ingredients that are in there. Then it'll have to have an inspection legend on it, and like I say, those are unique numbers to each one of the plants. It has to have a spatial handling if it's required, and that would be something on the order of keep refrigerated or keep frozen. Obviously, shelf-stable products don't have that, and that's the same in regards to the safe handling statement, which is on various products that talks about how the product needs to be handled when it's cooked, and it's just a statement that talks about how to handle products safely. And then the company name, and that could either be the company that the slaughter facility or the processing facility that actually processed the product, or it could be they sometimes put on there prepared for, and then it can be your farm name. So it's one of two things. And the inspectors in the plants are really good about working with you on labeling. And then the other thing that's very important to know is that it has to have a net weight statement on there. The price per pound is dedicated. That's up to you on what you want to charge. There's no regulation on the price per pound, but it does have to have an accurate net statement of the weight if it's larger than an ounce. So everything pretty much has to have a net weight. There's two ways you can do that also. If you have your own certified scale, then you can weigh it at the time that the product is sold in front of the buyer. And most plants will put, if you're going to do that, most plants will put a net weight statement and it'll be blank. And it's perfectly all right for you to write that weight in on that particular label. Like I say, the most important thing to remember is you have to have your product inspected if you want to sell it directly to the consumers. And make sure that you tell the plant that you're interested in reselling it so that they know. And then as far as licensing go, you need to be licensed with the Department of Ag in general. And there's two different licenses. If you're selling both directly to consumers and you're also doing some wholesale, restaurants, retail stores, those kind of things, then you would be licensed with the meat and poultry inspection. If you're only selling directly to the consumer and you don't have any wholesale sales, in other words, everything that you sold would be taxed, then that license would come from our food safety department. And I noticed there was a brief thing about safety of selling product at markets. I just always tell everybody, especially if you're going to like a farmer's market, make sure you ask them what their bylaws are, and they'll probably provide those to you. But a lot of them require that product to be frozen. And so you can just take it to the markets frozen. That's probably the easiest way to handle product. And coolers are fine to do that with, as long as you can keep that product in a refrigerated or frozen state. Excuse me. So I think that's about it on my end.
Mike, I have a couple questions for you
Okay.
that I received ahead of this webinar.
Sure.
What about people who want to process their own animal and sell it to their neighbors?
They can't do that. The law says that you can slaughter your own animals, but once again, it has to be for your own use. And you can't provide slaughtering services to anyone else outside of your own family.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mike. Another question is, can you sell beef that you already have in your freezer?
If it has the inspection legend on it, the answer is yes. But if it's marked not for sale, then that's exactly what it means. It's not for sale.
Great. Thank you again, Mike. If anyone has further questions for Mike, please put them in the chat and we'll do our Q&A at the end. But let's move on to the business setup of selling retail with Dacia Clark and the Small Business Development Center.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to share my screen here and turn my video off so you can just see my slides here. Can you see that? Other presenters? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what it looks like to set up your business. So the first, the first thing I want to talk about is business types or structures. There's three main types of business structures. Mainly a sole proprietorship, which a lot of people that are just selling things out of their house, or maybe people that are going to the farmer's market, maybe they've just done a sole proprietorship. It's also known as a doing business as. If you're a sole proprietorship, you do not have to register with the state of Kansas. So that's kind of one benefit, that you don't have that cost there. The second type that I see a ton of, and that we kind of try to steer people to, is an LLC, or a limited liability company. The reason is because it's similar to the sole proprietorship, except for the fact that the limited liability provides you just a little bit more protection. And while you don't have to register with the state for the sole proprietorship, you do for the LLC, and the cost is $166, and that goes to the state, and then every year you will renew that for $55. And that is something that the SBDC can help you with. So let me back up a second and make sure everybody, I was going to do this before my first slide here, make sure everybody knows the Small Business Development Center, what we do. We help clients with business plans, cash flow projections. We help them set up their website. We help them with social media. We help them with marketing plans. We're a team of 3, so you'll hear from Mindy Lee in just a second after me. She takes care of the social media and the online marketing website presence. And then my boss, Randy Robinson, he's the director. He's got 25 plus years of consulting experience, so he's super knowledgeable. And most of the services that the Small Business Development Center offers are free. So I should have said that at the beginning, but so that's my spiel on SBDC. So if there's other questions that you have, right now we're still working from home, but I will be in the office next Monday and Tuesday, and we can always do a Zoom or anything along those lines. So back to choosing your business structure. A corporation, obviously, that's a lot more paperwork and it's more expensive. That's not something that I help people with because it's just a little bit more complex. We always suggest that you go ahead and speak with a CPA or an attorney. I can help you set up the LLC, but I can give you some advantages and disadvantages, but we feel more comfortable with you if you don't know which one you want to be. That's not something we will decide for you. I'll work through it with you, but we would rather you get some professional help, especially because your taxes are going to look different depending on the type of business structure that you choose. Okay, so I'm just going to go right on into the LLC, because for this group and what we're trying to do here, this is probably the route that most farmers should go. Some of you may already have an LLC set up. A little bit of the pros here, which I'd already talked about. It gives you a little bit of protection. Only the LLC is liable for the debts and liabilities incurred by the business, not the members. So basically, if somebody sues you, they're suing the business and they shouldn't be able to get to your personal stuff. The LLC typically does not pay taxes for itself. That's what the pass-through taxation is. The net income or loss is passed through to the personal income of the owner or members and is simply taxed as personal income. So you don't file a separate tax for the business, you file a Schedule C on your personal income. There's no ownership restrictions. The LLC doesn't have any residency or citizenship restrictions. It does have a versatile tax status, which means that you have the ability to choose how you want that set up. By default, it's usually taxed as a partnership if you're a multi-member LLC, or it's going to be taxed as a sole proprietor in the case of if you were a single member LLC. So don't let that be confusing, because even though you're an LLC, if you're a one owner, you can still be taxed like a sole prop is taxed, and it just goes through your regular taxes. The LLC, you may be, yeah, I said that, a C Corp or an S Corp. So if you're an LLC, you can also be taxed as an S Corp at any time if you choose to do that. So again, I would highly encourage you to work with a CPA to figure out the best thing for you. The net income and profits of the LLC may be allocated to the members in different proportions. So it says flexible profit distribution. So you can allocate, it doesn't have to match what the percentage of ownership. So if you have a 60% owner and a 40% owner, then when you pay out your income or profits, that doesn't mean that you have to pay one person 60 and the other person 40. You could do that 50-50. So that's what the flexible profit distribution means. Minimal, like I said, compliance requirements. You just have to do an annual filing, which takes literally about 5 minutes or less, and $55, as I have here on my screen. And again, that is something that we can help you with, is your annual report. Those are due before April 15th. Okay, so the cons, although we listed pass-through taxation as a benefit, it can also be a disadvantage. Oftentimes taxes that are passed through and reported as personal income may be higher than the taxes at a corporate level. So again, very important to talk to your CPA about that. Cons, careful personal records. I don't know if that's really a con or not. I think it's good to keep personal, or to keep good business records, and personal for that matter. LLC termination. That's a con, I guess, but if you terminate an LLC, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. There's just some paperwork that you have to fill out. And then banking, it's a con banking is under the con side, because sometimes if you're an LLC and you have a business account, sometimes banks charge higher fees for business accounts. So again, you can register online with the state of Kansas for $166. And when you come to me, we can sit down and get your LLC and an EIN and your sales tax all within 45 minutes to an hour. So that's the next thing I'm going to talk about, is an EIN. So some of you may already have an EIN, and some of you, I tell people to look at an EIN like it's a business social security number. So it's called it stands for Employer Identification Number. It's issued by the IRS, and it kind of acts as like your ID. So over here to the side, it's also known as a federal tax identification number. So it's called an EIN, and it's also sometimes called a TIN. So just make sure that you know that they're talking about the same thing though. How to get one, again, the IRS, all you have to do is get on irs.gov, and it's not a super long process, and it's something that I can help you with in person or through Zoom. Do you need an EIN? The reason that you need an EIN, if you have any employees, you already have an EIN, because you have to have an EIN to pay employees. You also have to have an EIN if you're going to get a business account set up. So an LLC, it's recommended that you have a separate business account for your business, and the bank will not let you have a business account if you're a sole proprietor. So you have to be an LLC in order to have that business account. So here I say uses: business accounts, business bank accounts, hiring employees, and tax reporting. And the cost of an EIN is zero. There's no cost to this. Okay, the next thing everybody loves to talk about taxes is setting up state and federal tax accounts. Again, that's something that I can help you with. Some of you already might have a Kansas retailer's sales tax. So that means that you already pay retail sales tax to the state of Kansas. If you're adding an employee, then we need to make sure that you're also paying employee withholding taxes. And again, that's also done through the Kansas Department of Revenue. Your 941 and your 940, so those are federal taxes. Your 941 is an employer's quarterly federal tax return, and quarterly, so you pay it quarterly. And then the 940 is employer's annual federal unemployment tax return, and obviously it's annual. So the titles kind of give it away. One thing about sales tax and payroll taxes, it makes it makes it very easy if you're using an accounting software. Accounting software helps you keep track of your sales tax and your payroll taxes. And lots of times, once I can get you set up with QuickBooks, you literally just push a button to make it pay. So don't let taxes overwhelm you, because I can help you set it up to where it is not a lot of headache. The days of paper forms are pretty much gone, and most of the stuff that tax-wise for your business you can do online. Okay, how long will that process take? So I ran through the LLC, getting your LLC, getting an EIN, and getting your sales tax set up, be that state or federal sales tax. And it usually takes me somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour, and I can have you all set up and going. So not too much of a time commitment there. Okay, the last two things I wanted to talk about. I have a tax guy that that we use for the SBDC, and I emailed him yesterday, so I'll give him full credit, Carl York. And I just said, hey, I'm going to give a webinar to some farmers. And is there anything special that I should be aware of, or that any other information that I could give them? And he suggested to me that I point out these two exemption certificates. So the ST28F is an agricultural exemption certificate. So basically, you can purchase feed and medicine for your animals tax exempt. You would just give that tax exempt form to whoever you buy your feed from, whatever vendor that is. So that's a very important thing to know when you're starting up your business, that you do not need to be paying sales tax on feed or medicine or other things that you use to take care of your animal. And then the last one, the statement for sales tax exemption on electricity, gas, or water furnished through 1 meter exemption certificate. This, as an example, you could fill it out and give to your water supplier, and they will exempt the water that you are using for the animals you're raising to sell. Now, what if I don't have a separate meter from the water that I use in my home to the water that I use out on the farm? They allow you to take a percentage. Also, you can do this with electricity and gas. So I definitely highly suggest that you look into that, because, anytime that you can not pay some taxes is going to be more beneficial for you. Okay, who can help? The PSU SBDC. You can call me at this number. That's my direct line. I will not be there until Monday or Tuesday, but I am checking my email or my phone number. The easiest way to get a hold of me is to email me. As you know, in today's world, everybody has their phone with them, so I can get back to you a lot quicker through email. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of this presentation, and I hope that you will reach out to me if you need help.
Thank you very much, Daisha. That was great. Now we have another person from the Small Business Development Center. Mindy Lee is going to be helping us understand how to market our product online.
Hello. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared. Okay, can everyone see that all right? Awesome. Okay. So yeah, I am Mindy Lee. I am the State Marketing Manager with the Kansas Small Business Development Center. And today I'm going to be going over some things you need to know when you are transitioning your business online. So here's a little bit of a roadmap of what we will be talking about. First, I'm going to discuss some things you want to consider when you are transitioning online. We're going to talk about marketing your online business and your website, and we'll also brief over how the SBDC can help. So some things to consider when transitioning your business online. First is going to be your platform. So when it comes to finding a platform for your business website, the options can be really overwhelming because there are a lot of them out there. If you don't want to pick just any old platform. You want to make sure that your website looks and performs optimally and it fits your needs. So if you already have a website for your business, you can definitely start your search there, because if you're currently not selling online, but you have a website, you might look into your website host or your platform and see if you can add an e-commerce plugin, because most web hosting services have that as an option if you want to start selling. If the e-commerce plugin can actually connect you to your point of sale system, it might be even easier for you to start your online store, so that's always a bonus. If you do not currently have a website and you are in search of a platform to sell online, there are some things that you definitely want to think about. So one of the biggest things that I run into, people wondering about what the total cost is. So you're not just thinking about the cost of the website, but you also want to think about what's the cost for the e-commerce platform, the website host, and your custom domain name if you don't currently have one. You also want to think about the functionality. So you want to think about what your website can do and what you want it to do. So aside from selling online, are you also going to be blogging? Are you also going to create video content to post online? You want to think about what your needs are, and you want to work with a platform that can meet those needs. You also want to think about if it's easy to use. So whether or not you actually build your website yourself, you or someone on your team will likely be managing it. So you want to make sure that it's a platform that not only meets all of your needs as a business, but that you can also manage on the back end. And the good thing is that a lot of modern day web building platforms are pretty user friendly. They don't take too long to learn. And of course, we at the SBDC are always here to help if you are learning a new website platform, or if you have a website that you've never really managed before, but you want to get back into using it. So we are definitely here to help you with that. And you also want to think about if it can integrate with your current business systems. So for example, if you're using QuickBooks for accounting, or you're using Square for your point of sale system, a lot of websites now allow you to integrate those things, but you definitely want to make sure that whatever platform you choose, if you are using some of these other business systems, if the two can integrate and work together, it makes things a whole lot easier. You also want to consider your returns policy and your shipping procedure. So what if a customer isn't happy with their order? How are you going to handle that? Are you going to sell products that will have a return option? Whether or not you allow people to send back returns on certain products, you want to make that really clear on your website when people are purchasing. So there's just no ambiguity there. They're either all sales are final, or you have a certain amount of time to get them back to you if they have any issues. But you just want to make that crystal clear for anybody who's shopping on your website. How are you going to ensure that your customer receives a fresh product? So what will your packaging process look like? How far away are you willing to ship in order to make sure that your customer does get a fresh product? So those are some things you'll have to consider as well. And you also want to think about what shipping method you're going to use. For a lot of small businesses, the most popular tends to be USPS, FedEx, and UPS. But there are other options out there, but for rural areas, those tend to be the most common ones you're going to run into. So those will likely be the ones that you use, but you want to kind of research each of those shipping methods and try to figure out which one would work best for your business. And then you also want to understand your competition. So you want to identify who your competitors are, and these will be people who are in similar industries, selling similar products, and targeting similar markets. Because selling online opens you up to a whole wide world of competitors. So you won't just be competing with the person down the street. You'll be competing with the guy, 40, 50 miles away. So you want to think about who your competitors are, and you want to kind of do some research on them as well. So it's really important to research your competitors, look them up online, look at their website, look at their social media. Figure out if they're positioning themselves a certain way. So do you have competitors who are targeting a niche market? Do you have competitors who are targeting customers who are really financially conservative and they want to save their money? So you want to kind of figure out how they're positioning themselves. And then once you identify who your target market is, who you're wanting to sell to, then you can find out how you can position yourself as being the best option for your customers. Much of e-commerce is price-based, so you want to make sure that you can price your items competitively. So with places like Walmart, typically they'll have pretty cheap meat prices. So that's typically that could be kind of an indirect competitor. But the nice thing about small farms and ranchers is that a lot of people are willing to pay a little bit more of a premium for locally sourced products. So you can up your price more than someone would find at a Walmart, but you definitely want to research, again, look at your competitors and kind of see how they're pricing themselves, because you don't want to price yourself so much higher that people will think that you're just too much of an expensive option and they won't go with you. So again, you want to be pretty competitively priced compared to your competitors. So marketing your online business and your website. One of the first things you want to think about is social media. So whatever social media platforms you're currently on, this is where you can really start letting your customers know that you're selling online now, that they can pick up products directly from you, that you have a website. If you do have a social media page, but you really haven't updated it in a long time, or you're unsure how to utilize it for your business, please feel free to contact me. You'll have my contact information at the end of this presentation, and I welcome you to email me anytime. I'm more than happy to talk with you about your social media and your social media presence. If you don't currently have a social media page, you absolutely need one. So again, contact us and we can help you get that set up if you need some assistance. This last bit is kind of talking about that Shop Kansas Farms Facebook group. I'm sure most, if not all of you, are pretty familiar with that Facebook group. I think right now it's sitting at over 138,000 members. So this is a page where you really could get your name out there. You can put links to your website. You can tag your Facebook business page. You can you can really put yourself out there and market to a large, active, and regional customer base. Sorry for that. So it's definitely, if you're not familiar with this Facebook group, you should definitely check it out. And again, you will get a copy of this presentation. So Daisha and I actually will send you copies of our slideshow so you can have access to the live links in the presentation. So this does link out to that Facebook group if you're not familiar with it, but you should definitely check it out. Next is Google My Business. So Google My Business is kind of a one-stop shop for customers to find information about your business. If you don't have a website, you definitely, at the very least, you have to have a Google business listing. These are incredibly important. They're really great for customers to access and find information about your business really easily. And they're free, so it doesn't cost you anything to set one up. If you already do have one, just make sure that it's updated with all of your current business information, photos, contact information, and also make sure it includes a link to your website. So most of us, probably everyone here, has seen a Google business listing, even if you weren't sure what it was called. So this is an example of what it looks like. And the screenshot actually cuts off the bottom of it because it's a lot more information than this. But when someone searches your business online, if this business has a Google business listing, this will pop up on the right-hand side. And this allows you to add photos for your business. You can put links to your website, your address, your hours, your contact information. And this, I mean, of course, this cuts off here, but under this, you can actually include information about your business. You can put in like a biography. You can add links to your social media. And you can also do Google business postings. So if you have some information that you need to make sure gets out there, just another way to kind of get your message out about something important, you can create a Google post and it will post right inside of your Google business listing, right down here at the bottom. So for example, at the SBDC, when the COVID-19 crisis hit, we were all working from home, but we were still working with clients. So we wanted to communicate that message. So on our business page, I actually created a Google post saying, hey, you know, we are still working with clients. We're still available to work with people. We're just not in the office right now. So anybody who searched for us on Google and found our Google business listing also saw that post informing them of a pretty big change in our business operations. So this can be a very, very handy tool. Again, it's free to get set up. So please, if you need some help with that, or if you aren't sure, you know, how to do this, again, feel free to reach out to me and I'm more than happy to work with you. So next is email marketing. Despite seeming pretty old school, email marketing is still the quickest and most direct way to communicate with customers and potential leads. There are a few different email marketing services out there, but the most popular one that I tend to see with small businesses is MailChimp. And that's mostly because it does have a free plan that allows you to send up to 10,000 emails a month, and you can have up to 2,000 contacts. So it's a pretty extensive, robust free plan. But this allows you to create some really nice, you know, visually appealing emails that you can send out to your customer base. A good place to start if you are going to do email marketing is to send emails about 2 times a month. You really don't want to harass people too much with emails because they will be very quick to unsubscribe to you. But if you are going to send out emails, you want to make sure that you're giving them some sort of valuable content. So, you know, updating your customers on your new website, on any new business operations you have coming out. If you're promoting products you have in stock or announcing any special deals, that's kind of the information that you want to convey in your email marketing. And then of course you have traditional marketing tactics. So you have, you know, direct mail, flyers and brochures, print ads in your local paper, and then you've got networking and face-to-face interactions. Right now it's a little iffy if that's necessarily the best route to go, but definitely in the future or whenever you feel comfortable doing so, networking and face-to-face conversations with people is a really great way to get the word out about your business and any big changes that you have going on. So how the SBDC can help. So our marketing team actually helps clients in several areas, and we can help you with the following and a lot more than this, but this is just kind of a sample of what we do. We can help you boost your social media presence. We can help you create business pages. We can help you develop flyers and brochures. We can update and create your Google business listing with you. We can help you develop an online marketing strategy, and we can also help you with creating a website. So we are actually doing a special right now, and I want to show you guys this just so you kind of have an idea of what we're kind of putting out there as an offer to everybody in this webinar. But so we at the SBDC, we do a couple of things when it comes to websites. We have a free option, which is the advising option. And that's where, let's say that you have a website that you want to build yourself, but you kind of need some assistance and guidance along the way. As long as you're building it yourself, that won't cost you anything. That's considered a free advising service, and so we won't charge you for that. However, If you don't feel confident doing that, or you want to hire us to do it for you, that's where a cost comes in. Now, typically when it comes to an e-commerce website, we charge about $8.50 for an entire website. And then we have, from that point on, we can update things and manage your website at no extra cost. So you just pay that base cost, and then moving forward, it's no cost assistance with your website. But for this particular group, for this particular project, we are offering a special where we will create an e-commerce website for you for $400. And the only stipulation is that it has to be with our template, because it makes it a lot quicker for us to build these websites and serve a larger clientele base. So I'm going to go ahead and play this if you guys can see it. It just kind of gives you an idea of what that template looks like. And of course, the images, the text, the products, all of that will be customized specifically to your business. But the layout and the template will be the same, because it just makes it easier for us to kind of knock out more than one website at a time. If you decide that you want us to build your website, but you don't want to use this template, if you want your own separate template, then that's where that full $8.50 charge would come into play. But if you would like us to build you a website with this template, that's where it would just be the $400. And of course, if you decide to build it yourself, or if you already have a website and you need some help kind of updating it a little bit, then we can do that too. So I'm not just trying to pigeonhole you into saying that, you have to use us to build your website or you can't use us at all, because that's absolutely not true. This is just a service that we're offering right now for this particular webinar, but we can absolutely help you in any and all aspects of your business website moving forward, whether you have us build it or you build it yourself or someone else builds it for you, and then you want us to kind of help you learn the platform and manage it. There's just a wide variety of options out there, but I wanted to kind of put this out there so that you guys could see kind of what that deal is that we're offering right now. Okay. So aside from that, we do, of course, a lot more. We have a really good marketing team that can do a lot of things for your business. And, I tried to kind of, it's hard to be a little, typically my seminars like this go about an hour and a half. So condensing this into 10 minutes was really, really hard for me. But I just wanted to throw out there kind of a little bit of what we do and how we can help. So this is my email address. Please feel free to email me anytime. Of course, you can also put questions in the Q&A down below, and we can answer those after this. But if you think of something later on, or you want some more assistance on something, please feel free to email me. I have no problem talking with you. I'd be happy to talk with you. And then, of course, we have our regional SBDC office contact. So this is kind of our general SBDC email address that you can reach out to if you want to contact someone other than me in our office. And then, of course, you'll get a copy of the presentation. So, okay, that's all I have. But thank you guys so much for being here with us today.
Mindy, thank you so much. That was great. And please do add your questions to the chat. Next, we have someone who's done all of this before successfully. We've got Sherry Shanker with us this evening from Shanker Family Farms. And
hi guys, just checking in here. So before we get started, I have a slideshow, and I'll just preface it with the fact that I am not the slideshow queen, so you've been warned. But a little bit about our farm. We are fifth generation farmers. We got into direct marketing very early back in 2008. And shortly after that, the whole buying from farmers, grass-fed industry just exploded. So we started really, really small in a shed that actually used to have a couple of John Deere lawnmowers in it. And we kind of turned it into a freezer shed with a borrowed chest freezer from my very elderly grandfather. I'm not sure who was older, the chest freezer or him, but our business just kind of exploded and we made it work. And we've learned a lot of sometimes very expensive lessons along the way. So hopefully you won't make some of the same mistakes that we made, and you'll find your own path, because everyone has a different path. So if we want to get started, if you'll pull up our first slide on slaughter facilities. Can you see them? There we go. There we go. Okay, so if you already know this, bear with me. If not, we're going to learn together. As Mike said, there are two different types of slaughter facilities. USDA stamp, that's often called an inspection bug, by the way, or state inspected. Now, we are very close to the Missouri and Oklahoma line, so USDA is the best option for us. If you are close to any state line, or you are even considering selling at a farmer's market or selling out of state, just save yourself the trouble and find a USDA processor right now. I'm just telling you. USDA inspected most of the time, or many times I'll say, they are more likely to be able to do a retail package versus a paper wrap. And we'll go into that just a little bit later. The vacuum seal versus shrink wrap versus paper wrap. We've tried all three. Paper wrap, people eat with their eyes. You can't see through paper. So I don't recommend to anyone to do paper wrap. Plus, you're cutting the, I'm going to use shelf life. That's not the appropriate term, but we'll just use it for all intents and purposes here. You're cutting your shelf life in half. Shrink wrap, again, you're going to deal with freezer burn depending on how quickly you turn your product around. Vacuum seal is your best option. A nice, tight vacuum seal is pleasing to the eye, and it's also good in your storage facility or your customer storage facility for up to 2 years. Or even honestly longer unless the seal gets blown. But, and that's per USDA recommendations. So if at all possible, utilize the vacuum seal. It is a little bit more expensive, but again, this is a premium product. It needs to be wrapped with care, packaged with care, because people are investing in that product. They're spending money. They're buying into not only a great piece of meat, but they're buying a little piece of your farm. They're buying a piece of the American dream, the ideal in their mind, in many people's mind. They're buying from Old McDonald. And I know that sounds cliche, but I see it over and over again at farmers markets. They have no idea what we really do. And that's part of our job, is to educate the eater as to what American agriculture is really like. So, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. Cut specifications and terminology. Now, this can get tricky. Before you fill out a cut sheet and give it to your processor, you need to know what you're talking about. So oddly enough, there are multiple names for many different cuts. You need to have a cut sheet developed that will make it easy both for you and for your processor to maintain consistency. So for example, do you always want bone-in ribeyes, or do you want boneless ribeyes? Do you always want them to be a 1-inch cut? Develop a generic cut sheet. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your processor's life easier. And right now, processors are stressed out to the max, as we all know. So anything that we can do to help them, further develops that relationship. We need to remember that a processor, we're all on the same team. They are part of the wheel that helps make our business very successful. And if you don't have a good processor, or you don't have a processor that's willing to work with you, you're going to have a very big problem later. Inventory, pickup, and packaging. When you get your inventory back from the processor, and that would be your processed meat, whether it's beef, pork, chicken, lamb, turkey, bison, or whatever critter you're planning on having cut up, you need to know how much of what you got back. If your processor provides that inventory, that's pretty awesome. If it doesn't, you need to inventory that as soon as it hits your door. How many of what did you get, and what does it weigh? And by the way, Mike did touch on the fact that you need to have weights printed on there. I would reiterate that. Please do not use your own scale. You're going to have it certified. You could be off. just have your processor put it on there. It's going to make your life and everyone else's life easier. Just trust me on that. No one needs any more gray hair. Also on inventory, when you're going through that, let's say you had some brats that you picked up, double check your labels, double check your ingredients. It can happen that a printer screwed up. Maybe it left an ingredient off of the label. And I'll give you an example. Many years ago, we had some, I think it was beer brats, made up at a processor, and their printer screwed up. We had no idea. They had no idea. And it left off the word pork in the ingredients list. Now, the main thing said pork beer brats. No big deal. Nobody noticed it. I think we got back 100 pounds or something. But one of the places we sold it to happened to get their yearly inspection. And the FDA inspector picked up the brat and went, hey, this doesn't say pork. That's a no-go. So we did nothing wrong. Our printer or our processor definitely inadvertently did something wrong, certainly not intentionally, but we both had to go through that recall process. There were no fines or anything like that, but don't put yourself in that position. So we learned the hard way, always check your product when it comes back to make sure that, a printer didn't goof up. Stuff happens. When you go to pick it up, what packaging is it going to be in? Is it all going to be boxed up where it's easy to pick up? If you're having 5 beef done, is it going to be boxed up and on a pallet so you can load it up and go? Or is it going to come back in bags where you have to, dig through it, figure this out? That's going to make your life easier if you're prepared. We could go to the next slide. Okay, so there we go. Knowing your cost of goods. I cannot hammer on this enough. It's so easy as farmers. We get busy raising our livestock, taking care of our families, and we all get busy living life in general. It's easy to think, hey, I just sold this many pounds of meat and I have this many $1,000s in my account. But if you don't know what your cost of goods in, you may have just been trading money, or you may have actually lost money. Cost of goods can sneak up on you and change. You have to monitor it with every single slaughter. I highly encourage you to monitor it with every single slaughter of any type of animal that you do. How we factor it in and figure it up is we start with the cost of the live animal. How much does it cost us to raise that animal? How much is the current commodity market price? If I would have taken that beef to my local sale barn, what would I have gotten for it? I definitely want to make sure I make more money than that, by the way. So what are my costs associated with slaughter and packaging? How much am I going to spend getting that critter slaughtered? And then how much am I going to spend packaging it? What are my overhead costs? Do I have custom labels? I'm going to have product liability insurance, which just as an FYI, guys, before you sell a pound of anything to anyone, make sure you have product liability insurance. You want to be the one that owns your farm, not someone else if they sue you. Stall fees. If you're selling at farmers market, stall fees are part of your overhead costs that needs to be factored into your cost of goods. Storage and utilities. If you're getting 2 beef back and you're selling them out by the piece, you incur a fee. Even if you're storing it in your own freezer that you own, you have a fee to store it. Every day that pound of ground beef sits in your freezer, it costs you money in terms of electricity, storage, etc. Mileage, fuel, things like that. How far did you have to drive to get that beef processed? How far did you have to drive to pick it up? How far did you have to drive to sell it? So little things like that factor into your cost of goods. And I'm going to show you, this is a sample spreadsheet. If we'll click to the next slide. If we could, there we go. This is a sample spreadsheet. It's I'd kind of dummied up some numbers for you, but this is how we would calculate it. I have my invoice number in here, which is what the invoice that we had when we did, let's see, 5 head of beef. Cost of the animals. That's how much money I would have gotten if I would have taken them to the sale barn. Processing, slaughter, and packaging. You'll see that right underneath. That's how much my total basically kill fee was, kill and disposal. And if there's an extra fee, say to make minute steaks, cook summer sausage, if you save your bones for smoking, if you have to do medium packaging or heavier packaging, say for bone-in pork chop, that usually takes a heavier packaging so it doesn't poke through and break the seal. Roll stock, that's commonly used for ground beef. It looks very nice. It stacks very nice. We actually prefer it instead of the chubs. Now, when you go to break it out, after you've done your inventory, you want to know, again, remember, you want to know how many of what you got and what it weighs. So in this particular batch, we had 63 pounds of liver come back and 119 packages of ribeye, which weighed 80.49 pounds. And you can see the next column, we have it broken down by percentages. The percentages of those beef, this is how much I had. And if I scoot on over, my slaughter, processing, and smoking factors into there. Other costs factor into your next column, such as, smoking, summer sausage, etc., to get my total costs. And then it's going to factor out for me my total cost per item or per package. Okay. So my total cost, by the time I factored all of that in, on my ground beef, for example, was $4.51. So that was my cost per pound on that, because we haven't put into 1 pound packages. Typical retail markup in the food industry is 65%. Again, you need to take a look around at your competitors. Walmart is not your competitor. Don't ever think Walmart is your competitor. They are not your competitor. Aldi is not your competitor. So take a look around, see what others in your industry that have been doing it for a while are charging. Ground beef can fluctuate. Steaks are pretty stable. Most people charge about the same amount. Okay, and you'll see it kind of goes on depending on what cuts that you have cut. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, bulk sales versus by the cut. Bulk sales would be like selling quarters and halves. Most people, and just like us, start out selling by the quarter or by the half. It's a great way to start, but you still need to know your cost of goods. I'll give you an example. I talked to a gentleman down in Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago that was selling his ground beef for $3 a pound. Well, if he would actually have run his cost of goods, he would have figured out real quick that he was losing money because he was spending quite a bit in processing. Family processors, obviously can't do it as cheap as your big guys, like JBH or whatever they're called, and Smithfield, like that. So our processing costs are going to be a little bit higher than if we were a huge company. Storage capacity. What are you storing this stuff in? You can't put it in the same freezer that your kids' Totino's pizzas are in. Oddly enough, the state tends to frown on that. So you have to have separate storage. Chest freezers are cheap. Chest freezers are, electricity-wise, much less expensive than uprights. To be quite honest, probably a month after we started using that chest freezer, we quickly found out we needed a walk-in. You can pick up a walk-in freezer pretty doggone cheap, and they don't use a lot of electricity compared to a bunch of chest freezers, and they're a whole lot easier to deal with. So FYI on that. Just make sure your garage or building or whatever you're sticking it in is tall enough to build it in. So ability to accept electronic payments. Honestly, we do not recommend using Square. Square is cheap if you are doing stuff $15 and less. Square is very expensive if you're going more than that. So if you're ringing up a $700 or $800 sale on Square, they're taking a much bigger bite out of your pie than if you were using, say, Heartland Payment Systems. The only place that we use Square is at a farmer's market, and that is only for the mobility factor. Most of our average sale at a farmer's market is obviously much less than $500, $600, $700. And also sustainability. That's something you need to factor in. Do you really want to do this? How long do you want to do this? Do you want to do this year round? Do you really want to deal with people that much? My grandfather was in business 60 years, and he always used to say, the worst part about dealing with people is dealing with people. So you need to think about that. How long and how do you want to do this? Do you want to do it in bulk? You deal with them maybe one time a year or every other year? Or do you want to have repeat customers, repeat sales, and sell it at a higher rate per cut? So all things that need to be factored in. And it all comes with a business plan. So I'm sure a lot of folks at SBDC would say, if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. There's a lot of sayings around that. Farmers market. Farmers markets are a fabulous way to get started in this business. I know earlier there was talk about adding e-commerce to your website, and we have e-commerce on our website. We've had it on there a very long time. We use the Shopify e-commerce platform. It's a great platform, but I will be very upfront and honest with you. If I were starting out, I would not recommend putting e-commerce on your website. When you're starting out, you're just finding your feet. You're just figuring out what path you want to go in. And if you're also dealing with e-commerce and the headache or pain in the something that it can be, you can easily lose focus. And it's just, frankly, I wouldn't do it if I was someone just starting out. That's something that can be added later, especially if you're just looking at a very small region that you're selling in. Now, we sell all over the country. We ship all over the country. We're also one of 2 companies that now ships overseas to Afghanistan to our soldiers. You could send them a care package and they get some steaks in the mail, stuff like that. Before you start dealing with shipping, you need to reach a certain level. Shipping is a lot of science. Shipping is a little bit of art, and shipping is really easy to screw up, by the way. And so when you're starting out, I'll be honest with you, don't go there. But let's talk about farmers markets some more. Know your products. What are you selling? Well, I'm selling beef. Yes, but what cuts are you selling? And what are those cuts typically good for? So if you have someone that is just wanting a nice steak and here's the price point, maybe you talk to them about a sirloin versus a filet. Know your products. You also need to know your customers. Who's your target customer? Is it someone that is, if you sell grain finished beef, is it someone that's looking for grain finished beef? If you are someone that sells pasture raised pork, is it someone that's looking for that? Are you looking for someone that only buys organic? Are you looking for someone that only wants locally raised meats? And again, that's part of your business plan. That's part of your focus. Easy to read signage is critical as well. You can stand behind a freezer at farmer's market, and I'll tell you right now, half the people walking by will think you're selling ice cream. You got to have good signage, a nice presentation, okay? And when people come in and ask questions, you need an elevator speech. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that probably some of you, like me, were in 4-H or FFA forever and a day when you were kids. So remember the elevator speech, your 3 minutes to tell them about it and sell them on it, because no one can sell your product like you can, period. You're the one that believes in your product, and you're the one that's there to sell your product. And if you don't believe in it, that will come out in your elevator speech. Do not be negative about anything, ever. You're there to be upbeat. You're there to tell them about this wonderful product that you have. And please do not ever discuss religion, guns, or politics. Don't wear a shirt. Don't wear a hat. Don't do anything of the sort. It only makes you potentially confrontational. No matter what you think, whether you're liberal or conservative, don't do it. You're going to alienate someone, and that will cost you money. That's not cool. And don't make it difficult to buy from you. You're happy. You're suggesting things. You're thankful. They want to do business with you. And that's how it should be. If we could go to the next slide. One more. There we are. Okay. So these are 3 photos. They're a couple of years old from our farmers market booth. We go to Overland Park Farmers Market. It is now the largest farmers market in the state. And we are very long time meat vendors there. You'll see the photo on the left. That's me and my now 12-year-old son, David. And you'll see that we don't have shirts on that say Schenker Family Farms. So if you progress over, Kevin and I have on shirts that say Schenker Family Farms. We wear that to market. Yes, we have more than one. Every single time we're at market. People may not remember our names, but they remember our shirts and they remember the logo. A logo is nice. You don't want it to be too trendy. You want it to be something that will stand out. And the sign that's hanging above our head, you always have a colorful sign. We just transitioned actually last week to a little more updated version of that. I will also toss out there, you might notice on the photo in the right-hand side, 5% cash check discount. So as I mentioned, we take square payments at market. Credit card fees are something you have to factor in. So people are funny and they like bargains, and you want to decrease your credit card sales if you can. So what we started doing was we raised our prices 5%. Well, if you pay by cash or check, you get a 5% discount. So, oh, I want to save that 5%. So they're more than likely to give you cash or give you a check, and you just save yourself the fee. So food for thought, something to think about. Next slide. There we go. Okay, customer service. This is a big one. The biggest thing about customer service is how you approach the problem. I probably don't need to tell a lot of you this, but if you get your back up and you're cranky with them, they're going to get their back up. And that we live in an era of social media. People, you do not want people trashing you on social media because it's always out there. It's not cool, never cool. So you approach the problem. The way I do it is I approach it with thankfulness. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. What can I do to make that right? We appreciate your business and we want to make it right. You know, if we screwed up, I'm the first one to admit I screwed up. Hey, I am really sorry. I screwed up big time. What can I do to make it right? Responding to social media issues, it is very tempting when someone leaves a stupid, hateful, nasty remark on your social media page to argue with them. Believe me, I've had a few I'd love to argue with. I've had a few I'd like to find to beat the dog snot out of, to be quite honest. But responding politely, hey, I'm really sorry you had a problem with that. We'd like to make it right. Please private message us with details. Boom, it's shut down. It's not showing up in people's feed. Don't argue with them. You also need to deal with unrealistic expectations. In dealing with unrealistic expectations, the best way to do with that is to be proactive. We do recipe cards. We maintain a recipe blog on our website, and we help the customer choose the best cut. Very often, you're dealing with people that don't know how to cook. Many people don't even know how to cut up a chicken nowadays, much less what to do with it. So not only are you selling them that piece of meat, you're giving them advice on the best way to cook it so it turns out with the results that they want. And they may have an unrealistic expectation that that porterhouse steak is going to be super tender no matter what. Well, if you have someone that doesn't know how to cook, they may try to thaw that baby out in a microwave and it ends up being like shoe leather. So advising them to thaw in the sink or fridge every time you sell it is normally a good idea. I know, I'm sure there's some of you chuckling, but I've had that happen. So being proactive is critical. You know, if someone says, well, I'm not sure what I want, well, what do you want to cook? And then you can suggest the best cut for them. So my husband frequently, we do market together, and a lot of times he'll say, oh, you know, I'm not sure. My wife likes to cook and I like to eat, so I'll let you talk to her. and that works out pretty well. He really does like to eat, by the way. So here's some takeaways. Let's flip to the next slide. You are selling more than meat. You're selling American agriculture, and you're educating eaters in the process. You have to know your cost of goods, and you have to remember your time is valuable. Make it count. It's easy to get lost in the weeds. We've all done it. Sometimes I find myself down a rabbit hole with my head down. It's easy to do. And probably one of the biggest one, and this has probably been one of my biggest battles personally, is do not let your business consume you. Find time for your family and the things that you love. That's a biggie. So that's all I can think of to toss out there. Let me double check my notes here. Oh, and FYI, we are set up as an S corporation. And if you do decide to do an LLC or S corporation, and you chat with your attorney and your CPA, ask them about the phrase piercing the corporate veil and commingling funds. If you commingle your money and you get sued, you just gave away your farm. So nobody wants to do that. With that, I'm ready for questions if anybody has any. I don't know.
Sherry, thank you, Sherry, so much. That was great. And to hear that information from someone who has done it before, I think means a lot to all of us who are on the call. So, and I also want to note that in addition to Schenker Farms, Sherry runs McCune Farm to Market, which is a really lovely little store over in McCune. So check that out if you're curious about her product. Now we are to the Q&A portion of the call. All of our presenters are still on the line. In addition to the people you've heard from this evening, we also have 3 of our extension agents from the Wildcat District. We have Julie Smith, our financial management and entrepreneurship agent, David Scrons, our diversified agriculture and natural resources agent, and Wendy Powell, our livestock and forage agent. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and perhaps we can get started with a couple of questions that have already been asked.
We did have a question on the licensing that Mike went over. He did answer that one is the wholesale distributor license, which is through the meat poultry inspection, and then there's a retail only that's through the food safety and lodging. So I didn't know if maybe he could go over that one more time for the folks who had some questions on that.
Sure. The wholesale distributor license is if you're selling wholesale and to direct consumers, then you need the license through meat and poultry inspection. If you're only selling directly and no wholesale, then that is through food safety and lodging, which is just a retail license.
And I would toss in, as a producer, go ahead and get the wholesale license, because if you're in a small community and your local grocery store wants to carry your meats, let them.
I agree 100%.
I mean, I think, what is it now, Mike, $25?
$25, yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll get, once a year, you'll get a visit from one of our compliance officers just to check your storage facility and labeling.
All right, another question I think may have been answered, but if we could have you guys just answer it again, is can we use an out-of-state processor?
You can, as long as it was a federally inspected establishment in that state. And we don't have a problem with that. Colorado only has federal inspection, and so does Nebraska. Missouri and Oklahoma both have state programs, also just like Kansas. So if you use a processor in Oklahoma or Missouri that's state inspected, once again, that product has to stay inside the state of Missouri.
But there are processors in both states that are USDA.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, those are the only questions on the chat.
Mike, I have a question that I got as a text message. Is it legal to add your own label after you've had the meat processed? can you rewrap it and put something fancy on the outside for sale?
You can't rewrap it, no. But you can have your own label. Like I said, you can have your own label that's applied to the plant with the inspection legend on it. If you're using the plant labeling that has the inspection legend on it, you can also stick a farm sticker on there as long as everything on there is truthful.
Okay, but you can't apply your own label at home after you've brought the product home.
Not if you want, not with the inspection legend on it, no.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Go
go ahead.
Anita, I have an answer for your question about sharing her Excel spreadsheet. We do have that PowerPoint on as a file that we'll post with the recording of this webinar tonight. So we'll have all of that available after the call.
I see the question, if you sell to a store and they recut, do you leave your label on it? No, if they take, if they get primals from you and then they reprocess that, they would put their own label on it.
Okay. SBDC has a really fancy Zoom, so we're trying to figure out these questions. But here's one in a different spot, and the question is, how do we find a list of processors that are USDA versus state inspected?
That's a good question. I mean, our processors are listed on our website at Department of Agriculture under meat and poultry. You can go in there and you can find it on our website. There's a list of both custom and inspected facilities. The USDA one, there is, if you go to USDA FSIS's website and you put in, I think you can, there's a search bar and you can search for establishments. They'll all be listed. It's relatively hard to find. You can't do a search for per state. It's either an alphabetical listing or it's an establishment number listing. So you can find them that way. It's not real easy. If you've got my information, I think you're going to put it out there. Feel free to contact me and I can help you find one.
You know, I would toss in too, if you're looking for a processor, that processor is going to help you grow your business. So you need to, I hesitate to use the word interview that processor, but you need to have a good conversation with them. Make sure this is going to be a relationship that you guys can work together. And if you're processing something like pork and they have a retail freezer, buy a pound of bacon and buy a pound of sausage. If they sell brats, buy some of their brats. Because I'm telling you from past experience, processors use different recipes. And frankly, some of the bacon I've seen out there is not fit to eat. I would never sell it to my customer. And bacon is something, if you're a pork producer, bacon is something you will be judged on, period. If your bacon's nasty, they're not going to buy anything else.
So we also have a sales tax question, and I'm not sure who would be the best to answer this, but the question is, if the producer pays sales tax on the processing, then what do they do? Do they charge the customer? Do we subtract out the already paid sales tax or charge the customer sales tax for the full cost? Sherry, do you have any experience or thoughts on that?
I do. I didn't know if Daisha was still on the line or not. She's very well versed on sales tax.
I am, and I know you only charge sales tax once and to the end consumer, but I'm not sure on the processing side.
On the processing side, you should be able to provide a sales tax certificate to your processor to make you tax exempt. If you are actually getting meat in your hands and then selling it to the end user, the person that is going to cook it up in the skillet, then you by law have to charge and remit that sales tax. You are not, the sales tax isn't coming out of your pocket. You're collecting it for the state and you're sending it into the state. If you have something that you've already paid sales tax on, there is a place on the form that you'll fill out. And by the way, those are typically due every month. Don't be late. They will fine you. Been there, done that. Even if you forget, they don't forgive you. But there's a place on the form you can fill out, hey, I already paid this sales tax, and you can take it as a credit.
Hey, are there any final questions from our group? Anything that has come in, Julie?
I don't know if we answered this one about if you sell directly to a store and then they recut it, do you leave your label on it? Is that?
If it's, let's just, for easy reference, let's say it's just a single ribeye steak. They're not going to repackage that. Then they would leave that labeling on there and sell it that way. If they bought primals from you and cut that, then they would put their labeling on it at the store.
But when
that's
it's delivered,
pre-processed.
it has to have theirs, or it
What's
has to
that?
have yours. When you deliver it to them, it has to have your label on it.
Correct. Right, that's correct.
And so for anyone that doesn't know, the primals are like the big chunks of meat, like a whole pork loin or an entire pork butt. So when we deliver X amount of pork loins to Whole Foods, because we also sell to Whole Foods, our label is on the outside of that box. When they cut it up at their fresh meat counter, they have to have records indicating where they got that pork loin from when they are inspected. So they would deal with their own label on that.
All right, one other question. This is about sales tax exemptions. I'm sorry, my dog is barking. Would your retail sales tax number count as for the exemption for the processor, or what other form would you need?
You just need that form to, there's a retail tax exemption form, and yes, you put your retailer sales tax ID on it. You don't need, when you register with the Kansas Department of Revenue, they will give you a retail sales tax number, and then you put that number on the form and give it to your processor. Just like I talked about, you would give it to a vendor for feed or medicine. It's the same thing.
You know, and something that wasn't addressed on sales tax, Kansas is a destination-based sales tax state. So every zip code can potentially be different. When I sell at Overland Park Farmers Market, I have to keep track of how many sales that I have at that particular address. When I sell at our farm store in McCune, Kansas, what are my sales at that store? And when I fill my sales tax form out at the end of the month, what is my sales in this zip code at this rate? What is it at this rate? And then you have to remit. And so if you decide that you're going to ship, and again, I don't recommend that, but if you pull that trigger, you're going to have to track every single sale to every single zip code and tax jurisdiction in the state of Kansas so you can turn it in.
And that's
it's a whole lot of fun.
I would suggest that you use, like Sherry uses Square when she goes to the farmer's market. You need to use something.
Yes.
You can keep track of that easily, because keeping track of, that manually would be a nightmare.
Yes. And I will tell you that the Square websites do not calculate or track sales tax at this time. You need a different e-commerce platform That is a huge glitch in the Square software right now. So FYI on that, guys.
Okay, it looks
And
like
so-
we might have, go ahead.
It looks like someone asked about getting a sales tax number too. Google Kansas Department of Revenue. There's a number you can call and request it. I think it's all actually, you can even request it online now. It's free.
Yeah, just Google Kansas Department of Revenue, and I can send. Let's see. I'll put it here in the chat panel.
Okay, great. While Dacia's adding that to our chat, do we have any final questions from our participants this evening? Or any last words of wisdom from our presenters or extension agents?
I would add too on your labels. Yes, Anita, I see your question. Hang on one second. I would add too on labels, if you're wanting special label claims. So for example, on our labels, we have a GAP Step 3 rating on our pork, which is a certification that it's raised outdoors. Any particular label claims, may be 100% grass fed or 100% grain fed, whatever claim that you're going to put on there, that has to run through USDA. You can't just make a pretty little sticker up and stick it on later. That's, oddly enough, inspectors tend to frown on that. So your processor can help you submit that to USDA now. It's all online. It's not a big deal anymore like the old days when you had to do it manually and it took 6 weeks to get it back. It's pretty smooth sailing nowadays, but think about what you want to have on there. And I also wanted to point out to a lot of producers, they kind of look down their nose on certain practices, or they think, oh, my product's better than this product. Again, please keep in mind, you are doing yourself and other agriculture people in the agriculture business a huge disservice if you bash anyone. Your product, our product, someone else's product, we're all in the same boat. Very few people are in American agriculture anymore. Educating the consumer is absolutely critical. So tell them how great your product is, not how bad somebody else's is.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sherry, very much. I'm going to close just with a final screen here with some contact information. Oh, Anita, I would not recommend writing your price on your packages. If you do that and you change your prices, then that's not cool. I would definitely not do that. Have a price sheet on your table if you're selling at a market. If you're doing it at Square, plug it in. That way you just hit a button and it calculates it with sales tax automatically. Super simple. Great. Thank you, Sherry. Would you be willing to serve as a source of information if we get any questions after this webinar? Always. Yes, always. And I would point out to here are our websites. And if anyone on the eastern side of the state, Growing Growers and a couple of other groups have a mentorship program for beginning farmers, particularly meat producers. So you might check that out because there are several of us old dogs happy to mentor people that are just getting into the business. There's plenty of room for all of us, so please don't think we're all competitors. Wonderful. Thank you again, Sherry. Thank you to Mike and Dacia and Mindy. These are our websites. We'll post a recording of this webinar after it's processed, along with the link to the PowerPoint from Sherry. Any other information that you have, please reach out to us and we can share that with fellow producers, or if you have any questions, we'll follow up with those. And I do want to point out that the Wildcat District also has some materials related to processors in our area and local farmers markets. So we will make sure that that information is bundled along with this recording on our website. Thank you guys very much. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thanks for participating.